The exact moment an avoidance relief turns into quiet panic happens in a way that even they don't recognize at first. When they pull away, they convince themselves they'll finally feel calm again. They believe distance will bring them peace, freedom, control. They expect the space to feel safe, familiar, predictable, and in the beginning it does. The first hours, maybe the first day, they feel something similar to comfort, the comfort of old habits, old defenses, old emotional patterns. They tell themselves they made the right choice. They tell themselves they needed space. They tell themselves life feels lighter without emotional expectations, but that illusion never lasts. Because for avoidance, the relief they feel is not real relief, it's numbness, and numbness always wears off. Slowly, almost silently, something starts to shift inside them. It doesn't feel like missing you at first. It feels like restlessness, irritation, an uneasiness they can't name. They check their phone without meaning to. They replay the last conversation, trying to find something wrong with you so they can justify the space. They try to distract themselves with work, hobbies, people, anything to keep their mind from drifting back to you. But it drifts anyway. The panic begins as a whisper in their mind, a whisper they try to ignore, deny, and outrun. It starts with confusion. Why aren't they feeling better? Why isn't the distance bringing the peace they expected? Why do they feel a heaviness they can't shake? This is the moment the truth begins to reveal itself. The relief they felt was not because the connection with you was overwhelming, but because running from emotions is the only way they know how to cope. And once they realize the emotion is still there, unchanged, unsoftened, quiet panic sets in, because they know they can't run from the truth forever. The panic deepens when they realize you haven't reached out. This is the point where the avoidant usually expects you to chase, to fix things, to try again, to pull them back into the emotional comfort they didn't appreciate. But when you stay silent, everything shifts. They start checking their messages more often. They start wondering if you're upset, hurt, or done for good. They don't reach out, not yet, but they feel the loss building in layers. Silence from you doesn't feel peaceful. It feels like something important slipping out of their hands, something they can't stop, something they didn't expect. Their thoughts become louder. What if you took them seriously this time? What if you got tired of being the only one trying? What if you finally put your heart first? What if they miscalculated your loyalty? What if you're not waiting anymore? The panic becomes personal, not because they suddenly appreciate everything you did, but because losing you wasn't supposed to feel like this. They begin remembering your presence more vividly than they ever did when you were there. The way you understood them without pushing, the way you cared without demanding, the way you softened their world even when they pretended not to notice, the way they felt strangely safe around you even when they didn't know how to express it. That's when the panic starts to hit their chest. Not the dramatic kind, the quiet kind, the kind that sinks in slowly and doesn't leave. They go from, "I needed space," to, "Why does this feel wrong?" From, "I'm better alone," to, "Why does it feel empty without them?" From, "I'm fine," to, "Something's missing," and that something is them. They don't tell anyone. They don't show it. They don't reach out. But inside, they feel a crack, a break in the emotional numbness they've lived behind for years. Because the moment they expected to feel free becomes the moment they start realizing they may have pushed away the one person who saw them, accepted them, and cared in ways no one else ever has. That is the moment their relief becomes panic. The moment distance stops protecting them. The moment silence stops comforting them. The moment they begin to understand, quietly and painfully, that losing you might have been the biggest mistake they've ever made. When your silence replaces your effort, something begins to happen inside an avoidant that they never prepare for. They don't panic when you cry. They don't panic when you try to explain your feelings. They don't panic when you ask for clarity or connection. They panic the moment you go quiet. Silence is the one thing they cannot control, cannot predict, and cannot emotionally escape from. It becomes a mirror, the clearest, sharpest, most undeniable reflection of everything they took for granted. And that mirror shows them a truth they've spent their whole lives avoiding. They pushed away someone who was genuinely good for them. Your silence reveals something they never wanted to see, not about you, but about themselves. At first they try to tell themselves nothing is wrong. They pretend they don't notice the absence of your messages. They act like the stillness doesn't bother them. They convince themselves you're just giving them space, and that space is what they wanted. But as the hours turn into days, the quiet gets louder. The space that once felt like safety begins to feel like loss. The freedom they thought they wanted starts to feel like abandonment. Your silence forces them to look directly at the consequences of their avoidance. This is when their mind starts replaying everything, every moment you tried to get closer, every time you offered understanding instead of anger, every time you reached out when they withdrew, every time you stayed when they were emotionally unavailable. Your silence makes these memories sharper. They see your presence more clearly in your absence. They see the warmth you offered only after they're standing in the cold without it. They see how consistent you were only now that they have nothing to measure it against. And then something shifts even deeper. They start wondering if your silence means you've changed. Did you finally give up? Did you stop caring? Did you move on emotionally? Did you realize you deserved more? The avoidant who once felt in control begins to feel powerless. They don't know where you stand. They don't know what you feel. They don't know what you're thinking. And avoidants fear the unknown more than they fear closeness. Your silence throws them into the unknown. Silence exposes what their fear once hid. They miss you more than they expected. They care more than they admitted. They relied on you more than they realized. You become a ghost in their mind, not haunting in a painful way, but haunting in a revealing way. They start to see how many spaces you filled. Their daily routines feel different. Their evenings feel quieter. Their world feels less grounded. And this realization doesn't come with lightning or drama. It comes with slow, steady waves of recognition that make them uncomfortable in their own skin. Your silence also forces them to confront the truth they avoided. You were not the one overwhelming the relationship, they were the one under-participating in it. When there is no noise to distract them, no conversation to deflect, no messages to control the timing of, they are forced to sit with their own emotional patterns. They begin to see how they created the very loss they fear. They begin to understand that they didn't lose you because you were demanding. They lost you because they kept pulling away whenever love got close. And that's when regret begins to grow quietly. Not loud, not sudden, not dramatic, but deep. The kind of regret that settles in their chest and won't leave, because your silence no longer feels like space. It feels like a door closing, a chapter ending, a heart they thought would always wait, choosing not to wait anymore. Your silence doesn't punish them, it reveals them. Reveals what they threw away. Reveals what they didn't appreciate. Reveals what they can't replace. And that's when they finally realize the truth they avoided the longest. You were not the problem. You were the one they should have held on to. The flashbacks that haunt an avoidant after losing you don't arrive all at once. They come slowly, quietly, at the most unexpected moments, and each one hits them harder than the last. Avoidants don't experience regret the way most people do. They don't feel the loss immediately. They don't break down the moment you walk away. They don't collapse into sadness the second the connection ends. Their defense system protects them at first, numbing the emotional impact. But once the numbness fades, once the silence grows, once the distance becomes real, their mind begins to replay every moment you gave them, moments they ignored, minimized, or dismissed while they had you. And those memories become louder than anything else in their life. It starts with the small things, the way you used to explain things gently instead of getting frustrated, the way you listened with full presence when they spoke, even when their words were limited, the way you paid attention to their moods even when they pretended they were fine. These flashbacks hit them in the quiet moments, driving, showering, lying awake at night. They remember your tone, your patience, your calm energy. Because you weren't just present in the relationship, you were emotionally available in a way they didn't know how to match. Then come the memories of your loyalty. They remember moments when they were distant, withdrawn, or cold, and you stayed anyway. You didn't run when things got complicated. You didn't punish them for their emotional shutdowns. You didn't abandon them when they were inconsistent. You tried to understand them in ways no one ever did. These memories sting the most because avoidants are used to people giving up on them. They're used to being misunderstood. They're used to losing connections because they don't know how to show up fully. But you didn't leave until they pushed one too many times, and realizing that you weren't like everyone else becomes a memory that haunts them deeper than their fear ever did. The flashbacks intensify when they think of the moments you tried to love them while they were running away from the very thing they wanted but didn't know how to receive. They remember you checking in even when they didn't respond right away. They remember the softness in your voice when they opened up just a little. They remember the way you protected their feelings even when they didn't protect yours. These memories don't fade, they sharpen. Because now, when they compare you to anyone else they meet, no one comes close to the emotional depth and stability you offered. Avoidants are not indifferent, they are overwhelmed. And when they lose the one person who made overwhelm feel safe, their mind replays the contrast relentlessly. They remember how comfortable silence felt with you, how natural laughter was with you, how peaceful your presence was, even during conflict. They remember the small rituals, the good mornings, the check-ins, the warmth in your messages, the way you cared about the little things in their life. These become emotional echoes, replaying over and over until they can't escape the truth. They didn't just lose someone, they lost someone rare. And the most haunting flashback is the moment they realize you were not demanding, you were not too much, you were not overwhelming, you were consistent, you were loving, you were steady, you were the emotional grounding they always needed but never knew how to handle. This realization usually comes when they meet someone new who cannot give them what you did. Someone who doesn't have your patience, someone who doesn't understand their silence, someone who doesn't soothe their insecurities. And suddenly your efforts become crystal clear, painfully clear. These memories do not fade. They grow, they replay, they accumulate. Because avoidants don't lose you the day you leave, they lose you in replayed moments, in late-night thoughts, in comparisons they didn't expect to make, in feelings they didn't expect to miss. And that's what haunts them the most. The flashbacks are not reminders of you. They are reminders of the version of themselves that couldn't accept the love they now realize was the best they ever had. If you want, I can now explain *** keynote, 4 inches, 600 powerful words, ***. No one shocks an avoidant more than you do once you're gone, because only then do they realize how rare your emotional safety truly was. This realization doesn't hit them dramatically. It hits them through comparison, the kind of comparison they didn't expect to make, the kind that destabilizes the illusion that everyone is the same, or relationships always feel overwhelming. When an avoidant loses someone who genuinely cared, their fear convinces them they can replace the feeling with independence, distraction, or someone new. But the moment they meet someone else, the truth becomes undeniable. No one feels like you. No one loves like you. No one is as safe as you. And that shock cuts deeper than they know how to handle. It happens slowly. At first, they try to move on in the only way they know, by disconnecting emotionally and pretending they don't need anything deeper. They talk to someone new, or they go back to being fully alone, and for a short time, it works. But then the cracks appear. The new person doesn't understand their silences the way you did. They ask questions that feel intrusive instead of comforting. They take their distance personally instead of recognizing it as fear. They get offended, confused, upset, and the avoidant starts to realize how rare your emotional intelligence was. You didn't panic when they withdrew. You didn't attack them for their fears. You didn't demand what they couldn't give yet. You understood. And that understanding becomes the first thing they miss because no one else seems capable of offering it. Then they start to notice something else. The emotional safety you created wasn't just soft, it was consistent. You didn't give affection one day and pull it away the next. You didn't make them guess how you felt. You didn't play games or manipulate or pressure. Your love was steady, ready to grow, ready to heal. And when they compare that to the emotional unpredictability of others, they realize how profoundly safe they felt in your presence. Safe in silence, safe in honesty, safe in vulnerability even if they never fully stepped into it. This realization becomes the shock they didn't expect. They assumed everyone would treat them kindly. They assumed affection was easy to find. They assumed your loyalty was something people naturally have. But when they meet others who don't have your patience, your emotional depth, your loyalty, or your grounded nature, they feel something they don't know how to explain. Regret mixed with longing. Because the warmth they took for granted has been replaced with something unpredictable, something shallow, something that doesn't feel like home. And then they start replaying you not as a memory, but as a comparison. They remember how your presence calmed their anxiety when their fear got loud. They remember how your voice softened their tension even when they pretended not to care. They remember the way your energy felt comforting, steady, deeply accepting. No one new can replicate that feeling, and that's what shakes them. They start to understand that you didn't just love them, you made them feel safe enough to imagine the possibility of being loved. That's rare. That's irreplaceable. That's unforgettable. And this is when the shock becomes deeper. They realize how much of themselves they hid from you, and how much of you they never fully appreciated. The loss becomes real to them in the moments when they crave warmth and receive coldness, when they want understanding but get confusion, when they try to open up but feel misunderstood. They remember how easy it felt with you even in silence. They remember how seen they felt even without saying much. They remember how much their world softened in your presence even if they ran from it. The shock isn't that you were different. The shock is that you were exactly what their soul needed, and they didn't realize it until they were standing alone in emotional territory you once made feel safe. No one feels like you because no one times is times you. And this becomes the moment they realize the connection they tried to replace was the very connection their heart will always search for. The secret regret an avoidant carries begins quietly, long before they ever admit it to themselves. It starts with a feeling they can't identify, a heaviness in the chest, a tightness in the throat, an emptiness in the places where your presence used to sit. They try to pretend it's nothing. They try to distract themselves, bury the feeling, outrun it. But regret has a way of returning, stronger each time, because it isn't just about missing you. It's about realizing they played a role in losing the one person who offered them the kind of love they never believed they deserved. This regret is not loud. Avoidants don't break down in tears. They don't call their friends and confess they messed up. They don't sit on the floor dramatically whispering your name. Instead, their regret shows up in subtle, painful ways, in the moments when the world gets quiet enough that their fear can't shield them anymore. They start remembering the way you loved them with patience they didn't earn. They remember the effort you put in to make communication easier for them. They remember the softness you offered when they pushed you away. And those memories land differently now, because there's no longer a version of you showing up to give new ones. Their regret becomes heavier when they see how calm your love used to make them feel. They replay the moments when they were in chaos and you steadied them. They replay the times you chose understanding over anger. They replay the conversations where you tried to meet them halfway, while they refused to move at all. These moments turn into reminders of the emotional home they walked away from, not because they didn't want it, but because they didn't know how to stay in it. The real regret surfaces when they realize you weren't asking for too much. You were asking for the bare minimum. You weren't demanding emotional perfection. You were asking for connection. You weren't overwhelming them. You were offering care. You weren't suffocating. You were present. And in their fear, they interpreted your presence as pressure. They mistook your love for danger. They confused intimacy with threat. Now, with distance, they see the truth clearly. You were giving everything they secretly wished for but were too terrified to receive. The regret also hits them when they try to connect with anyone new. They suddenly realize how rare your loyalty was, how uncommon your consistency was, how deeply your emotional intelligence held the connection together. New people get annoyed faster. New people don't understand their silence. New people don't soothe their insecurities. New people don't offer softness without conditions. And in that contrast, their regret grows sharper because they recognize that you weren't just good, you were exceptional. There's another layer of regret they never say out loud. They know they hurt you. They know their withdrawal confused you. They know their lack of clarity created insecurity. They know their distance made you question your worth. They know they took advantage of your forgiveness, your patience, your willingness to try again. And avoidants carry this guilt quietly, because admitting it means confronting the truth about themselves, a truth their fear has been protecting them from their whole life. They regret not telling you when they felt something. They regret shutting down instead of opening up. They regret pretending they didn't care when they did. They regret acting like losing you wouldn't matter, because now they understand it mattered more than anything. The heaviest regret of all is simple but devastating. They know you would have loved them into becoming a better version of themselves, and they pushed away the one person who believed in that version. They regret that they didn't try. They regret that they stayed guarded. They regret that they let their fear lead. They regret that they didn't choose you when you were choosing them. And they regret it in silence, because avoidants never confess regret out loud. They carry it like a weight, quietly, privately, endlessly, knowing the door they closed behind them was the door to the safest love they will ever know. The truth an avoidant will never admit to you, and often can't even admit to themselves, is that losing you changed them. Not in a dramatic movie-style breakdown, but in the subtle, quiet ways that reshape a person from the inside out. They may act fine. They may pretend nothing affects them. They may show the same calm expression, the same distant demeanor, the same emotional armor. But beneath that mask, something has shifted permanently. Because once an avoidant realizes you were the best thing they ever had, a truth takes root inside them that they cannot unfeel, unsee, or outrun. This truth comes with a weight they carry everywhere. It is in the way they pause before responding to someone new. It's in the way they replay old memories without meaning to. It's in the way they compare every small connection to the depth you once brought into their life. They won't tell you, but the echoes of you sit in the spaces where their fear used to feel like safety. They now feel something they were never prepared for. The understanding that the love they pushed away was the love their heart was actually craving. They won't admit that your absence feels different. Not just sad, different. There's a particular ache that only comes when someone safe leaves your life. It's not dramatic, it's not chaotic, it's hollow. It's the kind of emptiness that follows them from room to room, conversation to conversation, even though they refuse to put it into words. They try to fill it with distraction, silence, routine, work, people, but nothing fits the shape of what they lost. Because what they lost wasn't just a relationship. It was the one person who met them in the places they never expected anyone to understand. They won't say this out loud, but they think about how things could have been different. They wonder what would have happened if they had been braver, if they had stayed present, if they had let themselves open up just a little more, if they had chosen connection instead of fear, if they had believed you when you showed them they were worth loving. Avoidants live in what-ifs, even though they pretend not to. And the biggest what-if they carry is the one about you. They also won't tell you how much your growth affects them. When they see you healing, when they sense your energy shifting, when they realize you're becoming stronger without them, they feel something sharp inside, a mixture of pride, longing, and deep regret. They always assumed you'd be there. They assumed you'd wait. They assumed you'd keep trying. So when you rise instead of chase, when you heal instead of beg, when you choose yourself instead of trying to prove your worth to them, it forces them to confront the truth. You weren't dependent on them. You simply loved them. And now you're loving yourself more. They will never admit how terrifying that realization is. Avoidants don't fear losing people. They fear needing people. And when they realize they needed you, that you were the emotional anchor they didn't know how to cherish, it destabilizes their entire belief system. It challenges their identity. It exposes how much of their life is shaped by fear, not freedom. And it reveals the painful truth that the person they pushed away was the one person who would have stayed. The truth they carry but will never confess is this: you were a rare soul in their life. Aún sin adequate connection, the safe place they didn't know how to receive, the soft space they didn't know how to hold, and the love they understand only in hindsight. They won't tell you that no one compares. They won't tell you that they replay your laughter, your patience, your kindness. They won't tell you that your absence feels heavier than any presence that came after you. But deep down, beneath the fear, beneath the pride, beneath the defenses, they know you were the best thing they ever had. They know what they lost. They know what they didn't choose. They know they can't go back to who they were before you. And they carry that truth silently, forever, even if you never hear it from their lips.